Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you listening to the podcast. If you're listening in Ontario, I hope you're enjoying all of this snow. It doesn't seem to want to end. Maybe you're cozied up in a warm, toasty brewery enjoying a fresh pint of beer. Today's guest is Jeff Bunton. Jeff was born in Burlington, Ontario. He grew up in Hamilton and eventually moved to Haldimand at the age of 29. Jeff has worked in many industries, including commercial kitchens, property maintenance, welding, fabrication, and lastly, brewing and entrepreneurship, which is when I met him. Making good things makes Jeff happy, is what he told me. And no, today's cocktail is not a Concession Road Brewing beer, although we did enjoy it on the podcast. Take it away, Henry.
Today we have the Red Concession. Fill a cocktail glass with ice. Add 1 ounce of vodka, 1 ounce of Campari, a ½ ounce of lime juice. Stir to combine. Top with 4 to 6 ounces of ginger beer and garnish with a lime wheel. This is a bitter and flavorful spin on a Moscow Mule, just like the highs and lows of running a brewery in business. Sometimes it's bitter, and other times it's flavorful. Now here is the brewmaster himself, Jeff Bunton.
Hey you, you're listening to Just Drew, Just Drew, Just Drew.
So this is the pod we're on the. I was just expecting the like, hey you, it's just you know what I mean.
Well,
like the intro.
we can definitely play it for you, but we play it for guests, so it'll be
edit. You gotta edit. Okay, yeah,
twice.
no. This jacket. So this is the highly sought after Filson vest. So if you win gold in the Canadian Brewing Awards,
yeah.
you get a gold Filson vest.
Okay.
So I've been waiting for this vest now for I believe about 10 months.
Okay.
So it came today.
What did you win gold for?
English ale.
Oh.
So Little Britain, ESB, extra special bitter, not a bitter beer. Bit of the style I can explain, but yeah. So my family heritage is English, and I really like brewing English beer. Clearly, it shows. And so in 2024, we got gold in Canada. So,
And what? Where do you submit this?
you submit it to the Canadian Brewing Awards. So
Okay.
it's called the Canadian Brewing Awards.
Is it a physical thing you go to?
They have a gala and
Yeah.
they do have like a conference. So
Okay.
last year we went to Halifax. They had their awards and conference in Halifax. So we went and spent a week actually in Halifax.
Nice. And you won in a certain category.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which would be the English.
English style ale. Yeah. So we won gold in that. And then
Congrats.
we've also won twice in the Ontario Brewing Awards now. So,
Okay.
So we got sour, Katharina sour. So
Your sours are always top notch.
Yeah,
Yours and
yeah.
Tyler's, like, I don't know what you guys do to those things, but they're amazing.
still a lot of care, a lot of love.
Yeah.
We have, slightly different approaches to how we do things with regards to the sours, but they both have their own uniqueness, I guess you could say.
So this jacket's sort of like what the golfers wear, like the green.
A little bit,
the
yeah,
green
yeah.
vest
So
is
there's two
like-
main suppliers. One gives you either a gold vest, and the other one gives you can get gold coveralls.
Oh.
So like working coveralls. So this is like a little more of like I'm going out in the evening.
Yeah, I'm
and
gonna
then the other ones
network.
are like for working in, right? But I don't generally buy a lot of grain from that company, so I'm aiming for more vests.
Okay. And what company makes this?
It's a company called Filson.
Filson.
Yeah.
What
so
do they
it's
do?
made in-
Just-
I think they just make workwear and like
Okay.
high-end workwear because I can't remember. I looked it up, but this particular vest is not cheap.
I wouldn't. It looks like I would assume leather, but I don't know.
No,
Felts
it's more of like a durable work fabric.
Okay,
I would
okay.
call it. I'd have to actually read the label.
Yeah, it looks like very like Carhartt quality.
Yeah.
Top of the line
Yeah,
premium.
yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
So, what type of? I don't even know. I have so many questions for you.
Yeah, go nuts. I can talk. It's all good. Yeah.
I don't know if we want to start, at the beginning, or we want to talk about this little fiasco that happened the other day with your canning.
Yeah, we can talk about anything. We can start.
What happened with your canning, Jeff? What kind of nightmare are you currently going through?
Well, it's just one product. So we had some cans, the actual blank cans. that came in that weren't of the quality that we spec.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it just had a bit of a reaction with one of the products, and it just creates a bit of an off flavor. So it was our Purple Haze, which is a blueberry lavender lemonade seltzer. Under more normal conditions, it tastes beautiful.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, just the incompatibility with the lower grade can and the product itself just created a bit of a sulfury note.
So you need a certain type of graded can for a certain type of,
Yes
drink.
and no. We just use the top graded can. So like the top grade can, as far as I know now, within the supply networks here is what's called a B panny can. So a lot of people don't realize is that an aluminum can is just the vessel, but inside of the can there's actually like a plastic liner.
Okay.
So it can be vinyl, it can be epoxy, it can be B panny, which is like a type of kind of, I guess, BPA derivative. So a lot of people don't realize that. It does kind of stink because the customer is not aware of that. And it's like a trade kind of secret thing. So we've been pushed into cans. They have their advantages, but there is some downsides as well.
What would happen if you just use aluminum? Like that's not a thing. You can't.
No, you can't. If you even with food stuff too, with tin cans, there's always a liner.
I see.
That liner is what protects the food from coming in contact with the metal, because in order to can things, they have to, generally they're more acidic. So if you didn't have, say, even tomato sauce in a can with a liner, it would eventually just eat through the metal.
Oh shit.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So we've had some cans in the past where we've had like little liner failures, and there'll be like a pinhole, and you'll be like, "What the heck? Why is this can soft?" And you look, and there'll be a little pinhole, and it's just somewhere where the liner wasn't applied inside of the can properly, and then that can cause that. So
That lavender haze, that's
it's great. It sucks to I've got my staff today dumping probably what we have on hand. We probably have about 25 cases, and then we're pulling back everyone. Like, we're just contacting them. So again, it's not something that's going to hurt you. It's just immediately you're going to be like, this isn't the product that I know that they're known for. It's not right. So
how do you adjust to that as a business? Is this something you can? Would insurance cover spoiled beer, or like how do you absorb this?
Yeah, if we were bigger, or if you're definitely into a big distribution style brewery, I would say that you would be going through a bigger, much larger recall. For us, we just self distribute.
So you just have to eat that.
Kind of. It stinks. Obviously, pardon me. Going back to our supplier and trying getting reimbursed at very least for the cans that weren't of the good quality, that can probably make things much better.
So you were supposed to get good quality, but you just weren't. You were given the wrong cans, essentially.
Yeah, essentially. And I failed to notice. And so by the time, 4 weeks later, so the product's been fine right up until a handful of days ago, and it just kind of I guess hits a point where
it makes it through that lining.
I don't know if it makes it through or it just
reacts with
it and starts to degrade it. That the lining's not of like the better quality.
Okay,
and it just causes problems.
People should just buy kegs.
Yeah, or growlers. I mean, growlers are
Growlers.
great. It's just there's an onus on the consumer to clean your growler, keep it in good condition. But like, if I want to drink some beer, like it's straight from the taps is always the best. Cans are fine and bottles are fine too. It's just like, it's a very customer driven market. I don't really get to choose what you want. You tell me.
Yeah. What's been? Have you kept a beer on consistently? What are your top sellers here?
Yeah,
or like style for that matter.
That's perfect. Yeah, we got a few ones that are pretty consistent.
Yeah.
We do try to stick within like a number of style categories just to keep everybody happy.
I was curious about that because I wonder if, Tyler, for example, could make different styles where he is just based on what people like in Waterford.
100%.
And maybe Jarvis, they like this type of beer.
Oh,
So
definitely. There's
yeah.
definitely like micro geographical things. So like you would think, okay, you have a brewery in this spot and you have a brewery 10 minutes down the road. And you think like, okay, cookie cutter, like rinse and repeat. You can just take one, and it's not the case. There's so many subtle differences to the client base. There is a lot of overlap. But if you think about it this way, is like when you go into a place, do you want the exact same experience that you had at another place?
No.
So, and also brewing is more like an art. So it's kind of my job. I mean, I'm a bit of a unique one where I'm a brewer owner. So I have a lot of jobs.
Yeah, which is not very common.
Not anymore. There used to be more, and then either they've, aged out, retired, moved up, kind of moved on from that position within the company as the company's grown. I haven't. If anything, I've kind of secluded myself in the back more, that I feel like if I can spend no more time in the back,
Well, luckily
I can elevate the product, and everybody else around me can elevate everything else.
Yes, I was going to say, you have Shannon, you have a good team, so
Exactly.
you can do that.
Front of house is their kind of game plan, and as long as I'm keeping the ship righted. But yeah, so it's kind of my job to like hear what everybody's saying, look at the trends, look at the different products coming in, and also our market, and say, what is it that people want from me. Very rarely do we get it perfect. It's kind of a neat thing. You can grow into some of these beers. Oh, might a little too far. Oh, okay.
I noticed it.
That's all right. I can lean forward a bit too.
You're good.
But yeah, just trying to adjust to those things and figure out what it is people want from me. Yeah, I feel exposed now.
You were hiding behind the mic.
Yeah. It was good. I liked it. I'm averse to cameras. It's my wife's fault.
Well, we noticed that before. We would have it right here. The audio's clean as hell, but then the mic's in front of your face, so
Gotcha.
can't see your beautiful beard and smile.
I love this cocktail, by the way.
Are you liking it?
I am.
It's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's delicious. It's got a nice bitterness to it. Yeah, it's. I would definitely order one of those.
That's that Campari.
Yeah.
I'm a big, like, my go-to is a Negroni.
Nice.
Or a Boulevardier, I think you pronounce it. It's a Negroni, except you swap the gin with whiskey.
Okay.
It's a really good one.
I like that.
But it's a sipper, so
Yeah. Here, I'll get it.
it's a sipper because it's all liquor. It's
Yeah.
equal parts Campari, equal parts gin, equal parts I think it's vodka. I'm blanking here, but yeah, it's all just liquor. So
Well, and I think with vodka, it's always like the quality of the vodka is super important because it's just pure booze. That if it's either super harsh or it tastes like rubbing alcohol, or it can actually be like nice and kind of smooth.
Yeah, I like Grey Goose. But if you're going to a party and you're making like a punch, use the cheap stuff.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Middle of the road. That's
Get
fine.
the Smirnoff out.
Yeah.
Well, also what I've seen, have you seen people put them through Brita filters, alcohol?
I saw that was a trend on like TikTok a while
You might know
ago.
more about this, but
It's a charcoal filter.
Yeah.
Like it has charcoal. I could see how that would work.
so apparently like it improves its flavor by tenfold.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have never done it, but maybe we should try it.
Yeah, I have an old Brita at my house that we're gonna get rid of soon. Because I
Yeah.
feel like after you put vodka through a Brita filter, you probably don't want to put water through it again.
I would doubt it.
It should rinse out with water, and here's why: is because alcohol is water soluble. I mean, that's how you proof down pure distillate, right? Like most stills are going to kick out
Right. You're not giving
between 80 to
100%.
90%, or 160 to 180 proof, and then you
Yeah.
need to proof that down. You're going to blend it with water.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would assume it would flush out pretty easily. But
I was learning about distilling. Well, we can get into that later because
Sure.
Canada is like super strict about that.
oh yeah,
Same with brewing, but there was this. Oh, it was in Thailand or something. This whole community got sick from bad alcohol, and I guess there's like this sweet spot where it turns into ethanol, and if you're drinking ethanol, you're fucked.
yeah, it's really.
But it's just a temperature difference.
it's temperature on the column of the still.
Yeah, and that's it.
Stills are the same. Like there's refined distilled products we use every day. Gasoline. They run. It runs through a big reactor, which
Yep.
is just a massive column.
It's like
still essentially
gasoline here, diesel here,
exactly. And then
plastics
they
here.
come off at different temperatures, and stills can operate kind of the same. that in a certain temperature you're going to get. But then the higher you go, the more you're going to get like those fusel alcohols. So it's going to be harsher. And there's a lot of similarities between brewing and distilling, and winemaking and distilling, and cider making and distilling and brewing. They all share.
There's a common
Yeah.
process, but sorry, it's shaking.
That's all good.
Is that one shaking?
I don't know what. Yeah, I hear it too, but
Maybe I'm like moving too much.
No,
or
no,
something.
no, it's not you.
I'm vibrating on a
it's
frequency.
not that one. That one's not making any noises.
There you go. That's why the headphones are good, because I
Yeah.
pick up on it.
That's good.
If you didn't do headphones, you would hear this like cling, cling, cling,
cling.
cling through the whole thing, and then I like to catch it early.
Gotcha.
We're not professional broadcasters here, so
Feels
Not yet.
professional.
Not
Wow.
yet. We'll get.
Not
I
yet.
feel like, I mean, if I'm professional and you have professionals on, then that makes you professional.
Oh, well, thank you.
It's
I
like trickle
appreciate
down
that.
economics and the professionality. Right?
Yeah.
That's,
There we go.
You know,
I mean, I didn't really know anything about sound,
Yeah.
nor was I interested, but I did want to do a podcast.
okay.
The most I knew about sound was just on sets and talking to sound guys, and but you know, I've never run a soundboard or I know anything about
Oh, man, it's so fun.
EQ levels and
When I came out of high school, and this is like, oh God, 21 years ago, I wanted to go for audio engineering.
okay.
That was kind of my, like, you know, when you ask, like, hey, what did you want to do with your life? Audio engineering was the answer. Mm-hmm. And I was either looking at going to Fanshawe or a derivative of called like OIART, the Ontario Institute for Audio Recording Technology.
Keep going.
And I just, you know, kind of life, right? And, you know, family sits you down. They're like, you're never going to make any money doing that.
Yeah.
And as you say, fine, I'll get a job, right? You know, get into the world as it may be. And, you know, eventually kind of led me in a roundabout way to brewing, which I'm sure if I was like 18 and I had sat my parents down and said, I want to become a brewmaster, they would have been like, you're never going to make any money. They
Well,
would
it
have
was-
said the exact same thing to me.
It was crazy back then because the whole industry was just big companies
It
like
didn't exist.
Labatt
Yeah.
and Molson.
Yeah.
You know, micro didn't exist. One of the first ones I ever discovered was Nickelbrooks in Burlington. And they were one of the first 10 in the province. I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I've met John Romano on a number of occasions. Really great man.
Nice.
He's had that company for a very long time. Through when actually it was like Better Bitters. And they had like it was like a homebrew shop.
Oh.
So that's why there was always like a bit of a homebrew component when they were in Burlington.
Because when I went, I think they've moved. They have a couple locations.
Yeah, they've moved now.
But when I went, when they were like maybe 3 or 4 years old, they couldn't even sell you stuff in store. So you could essentially get free tastings
Yeah.
because they weren't allowed to sell it to you, but
Yeah.
you could sample it.
Yeah.
So
When I worked at the chemical company, it was like right across the road.
so you
or
really
just
got to
around
know
the
them.
corner. So like my kind of Thursday, Friday thing was I would go in to buy some beers for the weekend.
Okay.
And the guy who worked the tap room was like pretty liberal with the samples, like, you know, pretty generous. So
Yep.
You kind of, and then once he saw me a number of times, like sometimes it'd be like, here's a bag of beer. They don't have any labels, so we don't know what they are. So sometimes you get lucky and you get like that peach bourbon barrel one, and you're like, oh, that's the one I really love.
I remember
But then
that
sometimes
one.
you're like, oh no, that's not the one I like at all. I think what were they called? Uncertainty principle. I think that was it, because it was like these barrel ones that they used to do at the little location in Burlington.
Yes. I remember them. They had this big, it was like a forklift just full of peaches. I was like, oh, this is how it's, I was just getting into beer and I was like 20, 21.
Yeah.
And microbrewing was just starting to grow.
Yeah.
And that was the first one I kind of discovered. My cousin got me into it, but you know, as a 20-year-old, their beer headstock was 7%.
Oh yeah, it hits
And
heavy.
so when you're
Yeah.
looking to get drunk at a party as a 20-year-old, like that's great.
It's great, but I could just never. I'm not like the big West Coast bitter guy, so I can never
It's a
get over
heavy beer.
Yeah, there's a number of beers like that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of like Dead Elephant and like
Dark IPAs.
dark. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's just not my style, and I guess that's kind of like I'll drink one if I have to, but I mean, you know, I'd rather lean on like a crispy boy, like a
My taste
Yuengling
has
or-
changed. Yeah.
Like I find like I kind of like some of those like older, nichier American brands because they're still independent and they just done with like Yuengling. Like
Yep.
I think they're the largest independently owned brewery in America.
My dad loves Yingling.
I love it. It's
and I
great.
was like, just because it sounds foreign.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound American.
No.
But it is
Yeah.
an American-born, incepted
It's great,
beer.
right?
And it's the
You know?
oldest beer in America, I think.
Yeah, and you'll be at a Sabres game or something, and you'll be able to find Yingling, and
Yeah,
it's like kind of
Yuengling.
amber lager. It's great, super clean, easy to drink, but also like not macro. And you'll see that, or you'll see like Genesee, or like some of these other, kind of brands, or even like Boston Beer Company. I can't remember the name. It'll come to me. Kind of like saccharide-based sugar compounds for
Okay.
Tyler. I was yelling at the podcast when I heard that. By the way, little tangent from a previous.
What I don't understand, explain this to me.
He went on about how we make seltzers. You
Okay.
guys, and it was the word he was looking for. He actually said it. He just couldn't think of it. It was saccharide-based.
Saccharide-based.
Just means a grain-derived sugar.
Because I was always confused because a lot of beer breweries make seltzers, but a seltzer is not a beer because it's not using grain.
It's not using malt.
It's not using malt
Or barley or wheat. Or,
which are components of beer. Yeah.
Well, and they're also like gluten-containing grains, whereas corn is not. But-
Yes.
So that just comes back to the basically what you guys were getting at in a roundabout way was like, what's the definition of beer? And the definition of beer as per the federal government
There's
is
3 ingredients, right?
no. It just says that the sugar has to be mainly derived from a saccharide-based
Okay.
compound,
And what is that?
a grain sugar.
A grain sugar.
So then that's the
Wheat,
key.
barley, malt,
corn.
corn.
Yeah, and any of
right,
those
because
can
corn
be
is considered a grain.
yeah, and any of those can be malted. So there's malted and unmalted.
Malted is just you're cooking it to
Kind
a
of.
darker, almost like
Yeah.
roasting a coffee bean.
A little bit. You guys touched on it a little bit. It's actually what you're doing is tricking nature a little bit. So you're actually encouraging take the barley grain.
Mm-hmm.
You'll soak the barley grain, let it sprout,
Oh,
and as soon as it cracks, then you're going to kiln it to a certain specification, and that's the malting process.
so you're growing
You're
it halfway and then stopping it.
You're sprouting it, and the reason why is because the way that a grain seed will work is that when it sprouts, it actually will release enzymes, and those enzymes are able to turn starch into sugar. So we want those enzymes. That's my
So
goal.
you're almost creating a culture out of it.
Kind of like a grain seed will have everything it needs to live, even
Okay.
food, right?
Okay.
And so what we're doing is then when we want to put like unmalted grains, cereal grains, oats, wheat, example, take oats, soak it in water. What do you get?
Oatmeal.
Like a oat.
You get porridge.
Porridge. There you
But
go.
now,
There you
if you were to substitute half of those oats with, say, a 2-row malt, the extra enzymes in that malt will actually convert the starch in the oats and create more sugar,
which is then alcohol.
which then becomes alcohol.
So could you make a beer without any kind of yeast that way?
Oh, yeah. Like
Yeah.
that's wild ale. So then
Wild
you would
ale.
allow natural inoculation, cool ships, or like a lot of places in the fall, what they'll do is a lot of these cool ships, which are just big trays, they'll knock out their hot wort, which is all the extracted sugar from the grain, into it, and then cover it like kind of with a net, and they'll let it cool naturally outside. What'll happen is all the natural yeast will actually just inoculate it. So it's called wild ale. It's a
Okay.
crapshoot. You don't know what you're going to get. There's some great breweries that specialize in it.
I feel like that's probably what they did back. Like who discovered beer? Who let that sit in a certain way? And I'm sure a lot of people got sick in the process of
Well,
discovering
let's
bear. But
find
like,
out.
I don't.
do you know the history on beer?
I know quite a bit from different, especially from like the European and English side of things. I think there's a bigger conversation of like fermentation.
Does that say 10,000 BCE?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean,
Prehistoric times.
what you're talking about here is like fermentation, and like even I know you guys had mentioned was it Peru, like chicha?
Chicha.
So original chicha was that the Peruvians would chew the corn.
Yes.
And then the enzymes, so the enzymes you
In their
have
mouth.
in your mouth are the same enzymes that we're looking to utilize when we steep those grains. So what we often do if we want to get a taste for what that malt's going to do in a beer, just take some either unmilled or milled and just chew it up and let it kind of soak in your saliva. And then that will give you a bit of that breakdown and you'll be able to like get the sweetness. It's kind of neat.
Huh.
So what they were doing was essentially just breaking the casing on the corn and it would get some enzymes.
Is it Aiden? He's the one at Flux?
Mm-hmm.
He did some kind of tasting thing at Burn and Kill, and I was there, and he had raw different, and he was like, okay, chew this, okay,
Yep.
chew this. They had a hop, I think he had barley, he had a couple different things.
Yeah.
And
There's
we
a
were
lot
doing
of
that.
like neat ways to check things with your sensory and to see what you're going to get and have a good idea. Like hops, you can do some hop rubs or you can make like teas.
And
do a little
isn't,
cold steeping, make some hop water.
I was learning hops is related to cannabis.
Yeah, they're cousins. Yeah. It's really
Whoa.
cool. They
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're cousins and they can be, well, not like cannabis can't really be bred with hops, but hops can be bred very similar to cannabis.
Okay.
And that's why you have entire companies that's what they do is breed hops. They cross the genetics. The genetics are like a huge business.
Because if you look at a hop flower and you look at a marijuana flower, they look pretty similar.
Yeah, and they can have similar aromas.
It's similar aromas,
They grow
too.
completely different.
Yeah, because hops are
A vine, and they
vine.
come
Yeah.
back every year, so they are a perennial. Is that the word?
yeah perennial. Yeah,
I always get it wrong. They're a perennial, whereas cannabis isn't. It's a one season done. But the way that you can cross the genetics, male female plants, hops have male and female,
okay,
that kind of thing. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Very interesting.
They're pretty dynamic and pretty interesting, and there's a lot of. It's almost overwhelming the things they're doing with hops now to the point of like IPA has become such a massive part of the industry that it's sad that a lot of other styles kind of get forgotten.
Well, let's. You want to dive into some beer styles?
Sure.
Okay. What are the styles you're making at Concession?
Ooh, man, we make like a lot of stuff. Most recently, the focus has been lagers.
Okay.
So we've been doing a lot of like Pilsner, Cerveza, which is like a Mexican lager. Our sours, we're known for them. So we always kind of rotate through some sours. Like we have our strawberry kiwi sour releasing this week. What the Flock.
Nice.
A bunch of flamingos on the can. It's just a fun
Nice.
design, a fun time.
Yeah, design's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, it's decent. I kind of know. You might know the guy.
It's passable.
Yeah.
Passable.
And then like I do like doing darker ales, English ales. We've recently done our coffee milk stout, our Dunkelsbach. Try to feature local coffees
Yeah.
in that one every year. Different roasters. So this year we have a rum roasted coffee from Ascend Coffee in Port Dover. Anybody who listens, they run online. They're really great people, Josh and Annette, and they have fantastic coffee.
So they're coffee roasters in Simcoe? Dover.
Yeah, they don't have like a physical storefront.
Just
but
a
they have,
roastery, though.
They're a roastery, and they ship out or they deliver locally. We sell the coffee in the brewery. They come probably bi-weekly to refresh our stock. We sell quite a bit of it.
Good to know.
Yeah, it's great coffee. It's so good.
I always like. I usually get Altitude guys from
They
Brandford.
did great coffee
They
too.
have great
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah, they're great. Seventh Coffee makes wonderful coffee. We had the Tasty Bean. We did a couple times.
Oh yeah, I've seen them around. Yeah.
Yeah, Tasty Bean's got great. The Norfolk roast is great. Yeah, we're always kind of rotating it through, changing it up. Yeah.
So what are the difference between beers? What makes a lager? And why is that the most popular one? Why do all the big breweries
It's
choose
the
lager?
easiest to drink.
It's-
So
okay.
lager's just like your crisp. If you kind of start with the tree of beer, it starts with two fundamental things: lager and ale. They're two different kinds of yeast. One is a top fermenting yeast; it ferments at a hotter temperature, and one is what's classed as a bottom fermenting yeast. It ferments at a cool temperature. So longer fermentation, longer conditioning. So that's lager. Unfortunately for us as brewers, it takes 2 to 3 times the amount of time to make a good clean lager as it would your typical ale. There's some tricks. We can do some hybrid styles. I just brewed yesterday style called Kolsch. It originates from Cologne.
I like Kolsch's.
Kolsch is great.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect mix of the two. It's called a lagered ale. It's a hybrid yeast, essentially. It's basically an ale yeast that likes to ferment in the temperature that's right in between lager and ale. It takes a little bit longer. It has a little bit of those fruity, estery flavors of ale, but it can kind of appease both worlds. And so it's a great beer to have as like kind of, you know, a good staple beer. We can make it a little bit cleaner, a little bit quicker.
I got into Kolsch's when I was in Europe.
Yeah, they're great beers. Usually pretty carbonated, pretty light, crisp. And, you know, then ales, not to say ales aren't clean, but then on ales, you've got a number of other styles. So a lot of your English beers are going to be ales. A little more fruity dates and fig notes and stuff from the yeast.
Okay.
A little more malty.
Because
yeah,
England's big on ales.
Big time. Yeah, we just did a trip last year to England for 10 days, and I drank more
And stouts, I guess.
cask ale. Actually, it's
Cask ale.
English like milds and English bitters. So you're talking beers that are like amber in color,
Okay.
but like 3.5-4% max.
Okay.
Like in England, if you're drinking over 4%, they're like, "Whoa, easy
Really?
there."
Slow
turbo."
down there, Canadian.
Yeah, and it's crazy because you'll be in a bar and you'll get like what we would consider kind of a hazier, say, IPA. I drank one that was beautiful on cask right in Oxford. We were in Oxford checking out the university and stuff. It's pretty cool. And it was like kind of like my Fjord of Dreams, like a bigger, hoppier, hazy IPA on cask, which is neat because it's beer engine, not gas draft. Really, really cool. And it was like maybe like 4.4. And I'm like, man, you English, you got like the low alc flavorful down.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's tough because alcohol is really the solvent for a lot of those flavor compounds. That's why non-alc beer sucks.
You're not getting.
Wow.
You need that alcohol to bring that flavor out.
You can't. Those compounds don't exist. They're not water soluble. They're only soluble in alcohol. So that's why a lot of like IPAs, bigger IPAs, the alcohol can act as a solvent and actually help you to get more of the flavor out of those hops.
Well, I think that's why if you look at the Heineken ones, they're like 0.5.
Yeah.
So they have to put just a little bit in there.
And that's a bit of a different process because you have non-alc and then you have de-alkalized. Oh. So de-alkalized is actually brewed very similar to regular beer, and then it's run through equipment to basically strip the alcohol out.
And so you'll keep that flavor.
Hope more of
Hopefully.
it at least, right? Partake's another one that's like I think they're de-alkalized.
I've seen some de-alkalized wine around this area. One's called Oddbird from France, but I didn't have the audacity to try it because I'm like, why would I drink this when I can drink a regular glass of wine?
Yeah. I haven't enjoyed any
De-alkalized
wines.
That's
No,
hard to say.
they don't taste very. At least in my experience, I haven't had one that I'm like, oh, this is good. But I have had some pretty good de-alkalized beer. Or what is Sunbrew by Corona? Is that de-alkalized?
Sunbrew is like nothing. So I think I'm not sure,
There's
but
also
I mean,
X. That's a big one.
yeah, they're so big too. I mean, they can like design
Figure
the
it
flavor more.
Yeah.
One thing I like to do generally, and I just try to not. I find that when products are trying to do that, they're trying to be something they're not. So rather than that, like example, if I have one of our fruited sours on tap at home, I'll just like cut it with some bubbly.
Okay.
Right? And like it just effectively turns it into, you know, a 3.5%. So I can
Well,
drink.
we
And it's
talked
not
about,
really affecting the flavor. you know?
Yeah.
It's like helping sometimes. Sometimes you'll throw a little coconut, pineapple bubbly into like the right sour. Like take a strawberry
what
kiwi
about-
sour and it's like, whoa, that is next level.
We talked
you know?
about making a drink with your beer, but I was like, I don't have the guts to tamper with a brewmaster's beer
do it.
right in front of me.
Oh, do it.
I
Yeah, yeah.
don't have the
No.
heart to do it.
No, we do. I mean, we do a number of things. Seltzer Palmers. So we'll mix our seltzer and our sours.
Okay.
So if we have like our mango sour on tap and our peach mango sour, or peach mango sour and mango seltzer, you'll just like half and half them.
I
And
do
it
that at
just-
Wishbone. They have these two. I'm blanking on the names. I like to mix the two sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a seltzer and a beer.
Oh, probably like just do it with like the beer mosa and just like kick it
Yeah,
with
beer
a light
like a
lager.
beer. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
No,
momo-
it's good. Or we'll take our Mexican lager and we'll do like micheladas.
Okay.
right?
What makes it a Mexican lager? Is it just lime?
Corn.
Corn.
Yeah, so if you take a Mexican lager, essentially the grain bill, the recipe.
Are you cold fermenting this, or are you bottom or top fermenting? This?
Bottom ferment. So this one's a great
Learning.
question. So Mexican lager, essentially ours, we model after like Modelo. I really like Modelo.
Modelo's
So-
the top selling beer in the world
I
right
love
now.
it. It's a great beer.
It is.
And
After the Bud Light
I
fiasco.
kind of modeled ours after that, similar. But if you switch the yeast, so if you use like a Mexican lager yeast, or you use an ale yeast, cream ale. Because cream ale is corn. So it's the same.
Cream ale's corn.
Cream ale is corn. So you take 2-row flaked corn, and if you use lager yeast, you're gonna get a Mexican lager, and if you use ale yeast, you're gonna get cream ale.
What's that cream ale? It's Canadian. It's a white and blue can. I think it's out of Toronto. That's the only like popular. Oh, it's coming to me. You might have to look this up.
Blue can
it's,
cream ale?
It's white and blue cream ale Canadian. That one I really like, but I never understood what a cream ale was. So it has corn.
Yeah. So
Does it have any other? Is it corn? Is it mixed with?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just a portion of the grain bill. So
Okay.
when you're trying to design recipes, you have to be mindful, like especially the non-malted grains, that you have enough malted grains.
Muskoka?
Oh, you're talking about Cameron's.
Cameron's.
Yeah.
That's it.
Cameron's is great,
Cameron's.
man. Actually, I just acquired a 12-pack of Cameron's recently by one of the sales rep visited the brewery.
Okay.
And yeah, Cameron's was like, I drank so much of their beer. when
It's
I
a
was
good.
like-
I like
They're
the
a great
cream ale.
brewery. John Cameron makes some great beer, and
Where-
they've been around a long time.
Where are they out of?
Oakville, yeah, they're
Okay.
on like in an industrial like big facility. They've been around. God, if I had to guess, close to 30 years. Like
So are they
were
a bigger?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Cameron's was like one of the big ones that I would drink a lot when I first started getting into craft beer. Cameron's, Steam Whistle,
Yeah.
all that. A little bit of like some of the bigger ones, Muskoka and
So what made you decide to open a brewery?
stupidity.
Stupidity and a love for beer?
Yeah. No, just the skills. So I've had a pretty interesting career path, essentially. So came out of high school, really wanted to get into audio engineering. Didn't kind of go that route at the time. I'd been working in kitchens, basically line cook, dishwasher up to line cook, that kind of thing. So pretty struggle there. Then worked in a body shop, delivering pizza, ended up becoming a welding inspector. So on a whim, a friend of my brother's said, hey, this company's looking for some guys. Why don't you come out? Ended up kind of starting as like the shop monkey, the greenhorn, the worm, and whatever you call it in your industry when you're the newbie, clean the tanks and get the garbages, that kind of thing. Ended up getting certified in a few forms of welding inspection and running like a digital x-ray machine as well. Moved on from there after maybe like 7 years into the chemical industry. So rather than fabrication, building, inspection, all that, ended up working at a chemical company brewing chemicals, essentially, as a chemical process operator, and did that for a number of years. Unfortunately, the company that I worked for got bought out by like a much larger company. And so, things start to change and shareholder profits become more important. Everything gets cut back. And so it was actually around that time we had moved out into Haldimand County, into Cayuga. I was really getting into, drinking a lot of these beers, Grand River Brewing, Cameron, Steam Whistle, et cetera, et cetera. Every weekend there'd be something kind of different. It could be European, it could be Canadian. Again, at the time, 8 to 10 years ago, it's not like there was as many breweries as there is now or beers available. It was pretty much like what you could get your hands on in the LC and stuff. And just sitting there one night, my wife had run her own photography business for the better part of about 3 or 4 years at that point. So she was successful. And I decided, we just kind of on a whim, we're just going through like, well, what can I do? What skills do I have? And I'm throwing out, I could build smokers. I have a lot of interests. Like I'm very much like you, or I probably have undiagnosed ADHD. Like I want to kind of like learn everything. Like it's like, well, now I see all this stuff and it's like, damn, I want to have a podcast. You know what I mean? Like
You probably have it.
right. Who knows, right? And just I like to learn things. I think it's really cool. And so going through all these ideas, fishing charter or whatever.
Very wide range you got there.
Yeah. It was like everything I could think of, and like just start throwing darts at the wall and see what sticks, right? And I kind of like just like took a big swig of a beer. I was enjoying it. Probably was a Cameron's beer or something like that. And I'm like, man, I should just brew beer for a living. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, well, I already brew chemicals. Like, I mean, how hard could it be?
You understand the equipment.
Exactly, right? The principles are the same. A valve is a valve. It's just we just use a different kind of valve. Mm-hmm. That's all. But it still works the same, right? Mm-hmm. So literally the next day, we drove out to St. Catharines. Went to and it's funny, this word's going to come up, and I know it's come up in your podcast before. We went to a store called the Brewmonger.
Okay.
And so the Brewmonger was this guy who just ran this cool, brew shop down St. Catharines there by Johnny Rocco's, actually. And went down. I spent about like $1,200. Like I was like, all right, man, what do I need? I don't want to do none of that extract crap. I want to make real beer. Like I want to. And it's like, okay, so then, load up the car with the $1,200 worth of stuff, go home and just start ripping batches. And
love it.
They turned out okay. Some were good, some were not great, but nothing was like bad,
You still drank them.
Yeah, there was only like one or two that were really bad. And they were when I was trying to like do weird spicy things.
Get fancy on it.
You overshoot on the cloves and it just tastes like a clove bomb and it's just terrible. So what I would do is I would actually hide the beers in the guys I worked with, their locker, right? And if they liked the beer, then they would give me some money.
Oh, nice.
And it would just help cover my materials, right? So it's like, if you like it, like I would put these 1 liter flip top bottles.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I had 2 liter ones too. Flip top bottles in their lockers. And then, if
Like,
at the end of the day, well, a couple days later, if somebody started showing up in my locker, I knew it was like good,
Okay. That was like a $2 beer. I did okay, but when they slip you a $5, it's like, oh, nice. That's I did good there.
The goal was just to kind of be able to pay for those materials, to keep doing some R&D and figuring stuff out. So in a year, while I was working at the chemical company, like the last year I was there, I probably brewed about like, I want to say it was like 30 different batches. And I was also building a business plan. So I would like, on my days off, I'd come home.
What? Can I ask what age you were at this point?
I was like 31.
Okay, this is what I want to point out to people. It's like, you can do it whenever.
Yeah,
I feel like people feel like they're too old. They just need to keep going in their career that they don't like.
If anything, I'm more averse to that risk now.
Yeah.
Because it's like I've got like I've made it work, and then it's like, oh, do I want to take any like I actually have more stuff to risk, I guess you could say. So yeah, I was like 31, had a house.
That's awesome.
That kind of thing. But like it was kind of that discussion with my wife of like, okay, well, if this doesn't work out, like what could go wrong here? And it's like, well, we could lose our house, or we could, it's pretty big risks, but it's like, well, do we really think this could work? And in our area, because we're still the only 7 years later, when we opened in 2018, we're still the only brewery and tap room. So there is one other brewery.
In Haldimand?
In Haldimand County.
Really?
Yeah.
Haldimand it's weird. It's so close to Norfolk County. Like Jarvis is like that cutoff.
I'm 500 meters from the county line, man.
So, you go to Norfolk, there's tons.
Yeah.
And then you go to Haldimand and it's like, you guys.
And I think maybe a lot of that has to do with how things were structured when the two counties separated.
When they split.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right?
we're talking about that with Amy.
Norfolk had a very big focus on economic development and tourism, whereas Haldimand was very, very focused on infrastructure and industrial.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's fine. But it's hard to build community and build, those things around those. Like you need big business for sure. You need stakeholder businesses, but then a couple big and medium businesses are going to allow a number of smaller businesses in a community.
Yeah.
Like we can't, just from the fact of the economics of it, you can't survive wholly on small business.
Yeah.
It's just impossible these days. I'd love for it to be true, but
You need like the Stelco employees, the Toyotetsu employees, all the money coming from outside in.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, I mean, it's a bit of a sad conversation, but when you have a small business owner living in a community who can't afford to do their shopping within that community, that's where the division lies, right? And so we do our best, and especially within our business, we try to support and promote local as much as we can. But I mean, we're still stuck, going to Costco every couple of weeks. Like, it's just a fact of the economics of the world right now, right? But anyways.
Yeah. So, very risky. You want to open this brewery.
Yeah.
You were making batches.
Yeah.
And you were talking to Shannon about,
Yeah.
hey, we should do this. And then, you just pulled the trigger?
Kind of, yeah. So there was about, I was building the business plan. My original plan was to stay at the chemical company for about a year after we were able to get open. There's a lot of obviously little micro things in between, finding a location.
Yeah.
These other things. We, finally got through that and equipment and everything else. And it was about 8 months from the time we found a location to the time we were able to get open.
Was it always Jarvis is what you wanted?
No, it was just Haldimand County.
In general,
So
okay.
we started actually believe it or not, the first place we ever looked at actually houses a brewery now. It's Paris Brewing Company.
Okay, there you go.
So we went and we looked at that Wincy Mills location. Beautiful location. But at the time, they still had some really weird like bylaws and stuff surrounding the area in the building.
Okay.
Like you couldn't be open on Sundays.
This is a municipal.
Yeah, it was something to do with Brant and Paris.
So weird.
And that particular building because it's designated as like heritage historical.
I see.
So there was that and all that. And so we were looking around. We looked at some locations in Caledonia, Dunville, and a couple in Jarvis. And it just kind of fit. We were like, well, we got equipment coming. We need to find a place. And that place came up. Landlords invited us in actually when they did a real estate walkthrough to look at purchasing it. And the main things are infrastructure. So like you need good plumbing, you need good electrical access. Even if you have to get it pulled in, you still got to have the wires there to do so. So same for us. We needed 3-phase power to run all our equipment. That's not always available. There are other options, but the equipment we had already made an agreement to purchase was that because we were purchasing from another brewery that was upscaling. So,
Yeah.
So we were able to do that. And then, February 2018, got the doors open. Obviously, a billion things have happened since then. I see photos of it now, the day we opened, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like we had a table made of skids, a couple picnic tables. The walls were all
I remember
gray.
that.
Very
We had this
rustic.
janky fridge that was like barely running. It was like our first brewery club was like kind of a bit of like a crowdfunding campaign just so that we had a bit of money to put like a bit of furniture in the place.
Yeah.
Because we were kind of at that point where it's like, okay, we've got everything in, we've got beer in the tank, we've got all the stuff going, but like we don't have any money. We need to open the doors like yesterday, right?
Yeah.
I remember they delivered me my occupancy permit like the day we opened because I told them I was opening with or without it. Because they were just dragging it, right? It was like, it's here. I just have to get this signature. It's like, okay, we'll get the signature because I'm opening. So this is now on you. Like
It's a common theme I've heard with guests on this podcast.
Yeah. Small business struggles.
you get backed into a corner and you're like, okay, well, like,
I'm trying to do something here.
It's just bloated regulation stifling business growth. essentially.
Yeah.
And I understand there needs to be regulation.
Very much so. I think there's a balance between regulation that works and fits, and then keeping kind of the idea of having the governing body in control, right? Like I think that they could easily maybe accept some more input from business, but when 25% of the Canadian population works in the public sector, there's a lot of jobs there, right?
When we had Dan Iden, who owns the Barnyard, the issue he was talking about was things getting circled, and it was just
no,
like,
this is that person's job. No,
that's this person's job. This person was going,
You
no,
gotta
that's
talk
this
to
person's
them.
job. And then on top of that, no matter whether these people get this thing done for him, they still get a paycheck.
Yeah, there's no like repercussion.
There's no
for them
incentive
Exactly, yeah.
But for him, if he doesn't get this, he can't make money.
He can't pay his
And
employees.
he can't pay his
and,
employees, he can't pay his stuff. So he's like, you need to get this done. So
Yeah,
then he kind of
it's-
went out of his way to do it himself.
Well, and it's hard, right? Because like, you know, I have a number of friends and I get it from all aspects. Is like there's a certain aspect of playing the game where you got to play the game and give them what they want and keep everybody happy. But then there's also this aspect of like you need a little bit of a backbone where you have to almost say, okay, you know, enough's enough. I've done everything you asked. So like I'm just willing to take some risk here. And then they kind of go, whoa, hold on, here you know. Like, I don't like having to do that, but at times being a business owner, you really have to like, you know, kind of make sure that that you're
Stand up for
you're
yourself.
moving ahead. You can't keep kind of like getting pushed back and stalled. And I know that there's always bad players in every industry, right? I mean, you know, you have to accept some regulation. You cannot allow industries to self-regulate.
No.
It's been proven from so many angles lately.
Yeah.
You know, when companies just shareholder profits become the most important thing, then and they're allowed to self-regulate, then they're not going to make decisions that are in the best interest of the customer. You
Well, this is
know?
why I like Arizona iced tea, for example. They still sell their cans for 99 cents. It's like because they have enough. They don't.
Yeah.
They're not. I don't know. I think it's privately held.
Greedy?
Greedy, yeah.
Greedy.
It's like, hey, we make enough money. Like we don't need to make more money.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like the Costco idea of keeping all the food the same price.
Yeah, I
And-
think like they say they have like a 17% margin, but that's why nothing ever goes on sale.
yeah. I guess
Because it's like they just run a 17% margin across, probably except for the hot dogs. I think the hot dogs they lose money, but
probably. But I
those
mean,
are good
like,
hot dogs.
Yeah.
I like that concept.
Yeah.
I don't
hey,
know.
take what you need as a business to grow and continue to grow. And yeah, it's hard, right? Because I mean, even small businesses are stuck dealing with bigger companies.
Yeah.
You know, like my can problem or where we get our CO2 from. You know, the surcharges just tack on. You know, a lot of the COVID surcharges just turn into other things. They just gave it a different name. Right? It's like, well, wait a minute. If I pay delivery and I'm paying all these other things, then why is there a labor demand surcharge?
Yeah. What is this?
Yeah. So we pay like every time we have our tank filled
Okay.
with CO2, we pay a labor demand surcharge.
But you're paying for them to
Sounds-
come and
sounds
fill
made
it.
up.
But then that on top.
Yeah. And that was just a COVID surcharge that they just changed into something else.
They're just renaming a charge.
They'll never
to-
take away, right?
No.
And I've heard there's been a number of bad players on the bigger corporate side with regards to the tax break, which is huge talk in the news right now. That they actually just they removed the tax, but then they raised all their prices a little bit.
Oh, because they're like, people are going to buy it. They're buying into that
well, they're
price
saving
anyways.
13%, so I want to gobble up at least 6 or 7% of that. And I'm like, that is so.
So if your beer is $4 plus tax, now it's $5 even.
Or,
with minus
450.
tax or $4.50, yeah.
Like, no, we just took the tax off. It's like, your business is a remittance vessel to the government on multiple ways, especially beer. We pay beer tax.
How does it work for you? Because it's alcohol and food, right? Is that what he removed the tax on for 2 months?
And a
Yeah,
bunch
and
of
I think
things,
some
like children's
kids stuff,
toys
yeah,
and some
yeah.
clothing.
How does that work for you when you're buying grains and stuff? Technically, that's food. Are you not getting taxed on that as a business?
No, we're still taxed
Still
on that
getting
because it's not
taxed.
considered like an essential food item.
Beer is essential food.
I
item.
agree. 100% I agree. All the sailors back in the day that didn't get scurvy would also agree.
Yeah.
But so we still get charged tax, but for us, we're not charging tax on anything basically that's consumable. So any food items, any snacks, any beverages here for our taproom consumption or to go, there's no tax right now. And we're lucky. I understand that some retailers have had a bit of a tricky time implementing that because they have more complicated systems than we do, right? Like ours is pretty simple. It's a square system. We just say, this category is...
I know some businesses that had to spend pretty much their entire day just shifting over to the non-tax thing.
Yeah, we were like a couple hours at the end of... My wife did it. I can't really speak to
Yeah.
how much work she did to do it, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It seemed like she got it done pretty quick. So.
I like Square. Square is what we use for the folk.
It's okay.
And we have it.
It's okay. Tech support could be better. dropping updates on Fridays, not great.
No.
That was a big point of contention. They seem to.
They take, what is it, like 285? That's like 3% ish. Around there.
Yeah, I kind of.
Isn't bad.
I tend to not pay attention too much. We do so many transactions.
Yeah.
That it just kind of it's a cost of doing business. I do find it a little frustrating in today's world where you'll get businesses that just cash only or cash and debit only, and I'm like,
I always wondered why, but now I know it's because the interest on using that system, like Moneris, is super high.
Yeah, we used to have Moneris when we first started. Like we're old enough that we've actually been We're on our second branding. Like we're 7 years. It's not like we're the exact same. So I mean, we're on our second POS system, second iteration of our entire brand. That kind of thing. It's like business has a life cycle, and if you're not kind of reinventing, I mean, I can see it right here. You look at Cameron's branding. I mean, that's not the same branding they had.
No.
Every year, everybody's
there's
changing.
exceptions. I feel like maybe Guinness, who's 200 and something years old, and that is their selling point, is being this.
Well,
but at the same time, they have shifted a little bit. Like they have a blonde ale. Yeah. I think they make now.
Special releases they'll do.
Yeah, and like their coffee stout. Oh my god, have you tried that?
Good. I have not.
Oh my fucking god, it's so
good. Sounds
good.
It
is so
hopefully
good.
I don't know if it's as good as ours, but
no, obviously not. But like close second or third. Yeah.
But it's neat. European beer culture is a very neat thing. I spent, like I said, 10 days in England, and we traveled all around. I have a lot of cousins and uncle in England, and we traveled north, south, Manchester, Oxford, London. We were kind of all over Sussex, and it was very neat because every pub you go into, expect to see at least like 4 cask tap handles. Where here, you'd be hard pressed to find 4 in all of Ontario.
Yeah.
We do some casks, but we definitely don't have it on a beer engine. It's just there's not enough demand for it. And I think it was back in like 2014, they had something called the Campaign for Real Ale. It's called CAMRA. And they were really pushing hard because cask ale was dying. And they were like, how do we get people to understand the culture?
For those listening, what is a cask?
I was
so cask ale is naturally carbonated, and it's usually in a vessel, and it's served with no additional like push of CO2. So what you end up with is a beer that is a lot smoother, definitely a lot less carbonated. Carbonation, because it's made from carbonic acid, tends to give beer a bit of a bite. And in those like lower session English ales, you want like that kind of smooth creaminess. And so then it'll be served like that diagram you see down that red one or burgundy one, if you will, on the lower right. Yeah, so like that's a perfect idea of what like a cask on our bar would look like. So you're just serving with the natural carbonation that you build in that vessel. So
it's not like from a keg to the CO2 tanks.
No.
Push it out
So what we will do is you can there's 2 ways of doing it. You can put the beer in the cask at a certain perfect timing when there's still a little bit of fermentation happening to basically like sponge it and seal it up. And then the rest of the carbonation will just go into solution. Or you can add additional sugar and yeast and do what's a secondary fermentation, which is like a conditioning step, and then you can naturally carbonate that way. That's generally the way that I like to do it. I'll let the beer ferment out, and then I'll rack it off into that cask, add in a bit more sugar and a bit more yeast.
So you are doing casking at your place?
We do it sporadically, like in the winter. We'll sometimes release them on a Saturdays. We haven't done them in quite a while. This year's been really busy.
Do like a cask party.
Yeah. It's but what I find really neat there is that the culture is surrounded by this, and so we were at a number of pubs where you'd see younger people, say in their 20s, coming in, and I'd be like head on a swivel. I'm like, I wonder what they're gonna order. Are they gonna order like the fizzy bubbler? Or are they going to order some real beer here? And every one of them would order like cask ale, London
That's
Pride.
sick.
And I started to realize what it is here we have this like, oh, I don't drink that. That was my father's beer. And they're like, no, we drink it because it was our father's beer.
It's tradition. It's culture.
It's culture. Like when you put London Pride on a bottle, on a cask, on a pint glass, like that's their beer. They are proud of that. Well, I don't feel that with Canadian on a can.
I think, like, I don't know if it's because even the concept of a pub is English.
Yes.
And Irish.
Publican house. I'm the publican, and this is my house, and you come in and...
Yeah, and that's been around for 5,000, or not 5,000 years, 500 to 1,000 years. Like, it's just an old culture. England's been around for so long.
Yeah.
And the concept of a pub or an inn has been around for 5 to 1,000 years. Here, we're only 60 years old now?
Yeah.
I don't know how old Canada is. Somewhere around there. Can't do the math, but I feel like the culture it's not ingrained here, and we're so used to big capitalist, like Labatt and Bud Light and Coors Light and all these big beers. So whereas in England, all those pubs were everywhere in every town.
Oh, for sure.
Before capitalist breweries.
Oh yeah, we spent an entire day walking around Manchester, and all my cousin did was go, that bar is older than Canada.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying.
Canada.
This is what I'm saying.
And
like I went to a pub in England, and it was 500 years old.
Yeah,
and lower too, because everybody was shorter then. So me and my dad are like, my dad's 6'4", I'm 6'4". We're like going underneath beams and stuff.
Yeah,
and they've been serving beer for 500 years.
Yeah,
they're just more homey too. Like I spent some time over there, and you'd walk in and you just feel like everyone's welcoming, and it's just happy.
Yeah, and I found a weird thing where I kind of had this, like, I've never been to England. I've been dying to go for a long portion of my life with my family there. And I was kind of like, I expected to, like, when people said hello and you would say hello back, they'd be like, oh, you're not from here. Where are you from? And, like, nobody cared.
They're just happy.
Nobody
come
cared.
drink beer.
Like, it wasn't like, oh, you're not from around here. It was like, come on in. What can I get you? Like, it was never a question. It was
They don't
really
care.
interesting. Yeah, they're just happy to have you, right?
Yeah.
And you're walking around this historic town, and you're like, this is just crazy. Like, this
Did
is
you
so
ever?
cool.
Did you go to Camden Town in London?
No, we stayed right in Piccadilly Circus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was cool.
I have a good friend. I have a best friend that lives there, so I've been to 2 times.
Okay.
But I get like the locals. Hey, I'm gonna show you some spots. Like, he lives in a place called Shoreham, which is 30 minutes west of Brighton. Okay. So the coast, south coast. But when hey, show me some shit. So he took us to Camden Town, which is like the distillery district in Toronto, sort of.
Cool.
I guess it's a drinking neighborhood. There's breweries and bars, and so we did all that kind of shit.
That's awesome. Very cool.
And like also the thing there is the restrictions are less, so they have beer gardens. Like they have picnic tables. And you can just go and you sit outside on the street on the curb and drink a beer.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they don't like. We were just like walking by with our friend, who's a pilot. So incidentally, we met him in London, and we had walked by Big Ben, and it was just like busy as heck, right? So we find this pub, and it's like lined up out the door, and they're like, no, sorry, there's no seats, but if you want, you can grab a pint and just go sit on the bench outside.
Nice.
It's like,
that's fucking
so then
awesome.
we go and we're sitting on the bench with like a handful of other people just having pints of these big steams.
Any issues, any drunk people, any crimes?
No, it was hilarious. There was a cop like standing right across from us, like one that actually had a big gun, and they were just like, hey, how you doing? Good? Enjoying your beer? Yep, cool. Like they didn't.
I don't see why we can't do that here.
No, we can. It's just I don't know, when government has power, they don't want to give it up.
Well, and also our government, at least our provincial government has a monopoly on the alcohol. There's a liquor control board of Ontario.
And I think that it's important to
like we were saying, regulate.
We're all doing our things responsibly.
Yeah.
But I mean, it wasn't like, so there was a lot of regulations that even when we started don't exist anymore, which is kind of cool. So like, other breweries in the area that aren't, say 7 years old won't remember to the point when we were only allowed to serve 12 ounces. No more. Because as a brewery with the type of liquor license we had, they said, nope, you can only serve 12 ounces. And you're like, well, but I could serve...
But why though?
A flight with 4 or 5 ounce samples. Yep, that's fine because no vessel contains more than 12 ounces.
But collectively it does.
But collectively it contains 20 ounces.
So where is the law? That's where I get frustrated. It's like, where's the logic?
You're just what I don't understand about it is from the type of business and the business that I have that would you not want the more beer I make the more tax I pay, the more beer I sell, the more tax I remit.
The more money is
You
going
know,
to the economy, the more money is going into your business,
right?
the more you
It
can
seems
grow.
silly not to allow growth. So
Yeah.
like, you know, I thought it was. I mean, the only problem is that alcohol and other fun stuff, I guess you would call it. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's like it's been held as this like little gambling thing with the government instead of just being like, hey, we just
a
want to
regular
change things. It's
industry,
like,
yeah.
oh, we're gonna do this and try and buy more votes, and that's like, ugh, man, why you got to do that? Like, because then, people, it just, yeah, I don't know.
The other thing I disagree with wholeheartedly is the way the smart serve system is set up and how the person serving or the business serving the alcohol is responsible for the individual purchasing it,
Yes.
which I think is ludicrous. They're an adult. They're above 19. You need to be above 19 to purchase alcohol.
Yeah.
They should, if they want to drink enough alcohol to be intoxicated, or enough alcohol, let's word it this way, enough alcohol to not legally drive a car, that should be their decision.
100%.
But it's not, the liability weighs on the person serving,
Yeah.
which I think, I don't know.
I think it's kind of important to have a bit of that, though.
But I don't think the onus should be on,
It's hard because I agree. Like, it shouldn't be your responsibility to babysit.
They're an
everyone you're
adult.
serving alcohol to, but on the same hand, it's like, what? Yeah. But if someone wanted to get blackout drunk, they could just go buy
and do it at
a
home.
case and get it home.
I'm not saying to condone blackout drunkenness, but what is is it 0.5 right now? 0.8?
Yeah, I think 0.05 is like a warning, and 0.08 is like the.
And that's a
limit.
beer, essentially.
Yeah, and
So-
then even little things with that has changed where it used to be above 0.08.
Yeah.
And now it's like anything at, right?
But
So
if they get pulled over, that onus will fall back on the person serving that beer and not the person. Well, it'll be both.
It can.
It'll be
Yeah.
both.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to a
it can.
degree.
Yeah.
They can come after you.
It
probably,
becomes
but-
really, I think it's a bigger discussion. It's just coming down to like liability and insurance. So like I just recently had to redo and renegotiate all of our insurance as a brewery because the place that I've been with for 6 years just decided like they arbitrarily decided that we loop into every bar that's ever been a bar. So it's like, no, you're a bar. And it's like, well, we have an interesting, there is that aspect. We're also a manufacturing facility and we're also retail. So you could actually call us all three of them. But they were like, nope, you're a bar, and we don't, we don't do bars. I was with a smaller mutual company. We don't do bars, so we're gonna actually like raise your rates by like 50%. And I was like,
I was
yeah,
gonna
okay,
say,
see
I
you
bet
later.
bar is the most expensive insurance.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, I don't understand the logic in this. You've insured me for 5 years, and then all of a sudden you just decide that you don't know what kind of business I'm in, and it just seems like they're just trying to clear any possible liability. And it's like, well, but isn't that what I pay you for? Like, I pay you to assume a certain amount of risk, right? And it's not all service related. We get an ice storm. Somebody slips and falls.
Yeah.
Like that falls under general liability.
Yeah.
Like it just seems silly in an industry where they post record profits and then it just kind of, but again, my friend Phil will listen to this and he'll be like,
Raging.
duh, because
Yeah.
he's my guy, but he's also like, I
Insurance.
complain a lot about it.
It's a sickening industry.
There's no-
It's gross.
yeah, there's
It's
no
gross.
product. It's a financial product.
And I mean, I do have to say, like I was with TD Insurance and they did redo my house after a fire.
yeah,
So there's that.
Yeah.
Like they do, yeah, but they were,
I bet you it wasn't easy.
no, and they fought us on some things that were very silly.
Yeah,
But I mean, at the end of the day, they did
Gotta
redo my
have it.
house and they covered me and
Yeah.
it did, it's very important to have. But
why can't they implement a 17% margin cap?
yeah.
But
Oh, there's a big news story right now.
I didn't want to bring that up, but since you did bring it up, yeah. You know about that, right? The CEO that got shot in New York City?
I heard of it. I really
So it
didn't
was-
look into it too much.
forget
I
the-
know it was a medical insurance
Yes.
company. Yeah.
Apparently, he had like this automatic algorithm, like an AI, just automatically denying people to increase profits. And I'm assuming this guy who did the killing, family member probably got denied. They
I was
died.
cut off or
Apparently, it
Cut
was
off.
him. He was like from a really like well-off background.
Is
and,
it
like,
actually him? Because they're not. Like,
I don't know. I'm not an investigator, but there's a lot of conspiracies that, it is and it isn't. I love a good conspiracy.
The world's a crazy place.
It
isn't
really is.
You
Sometimes
know,
it's nice to just.
Sometimes I'll flip on the
and
news
enjoy.
like once a week, and I'll be like, "Yeah, okay, that's enough of that."
Yeah, I don't
I don't watch
obviously,
mainstream news.
No.
Oh, there's so much going on.
I don't watch any broadcast.
I get
news.
mine from Instagram memes. That's where I get mine.
You know what did it
my
for
news
me
from?
was that they did a montage of like all the major networks.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
saying the
And they were all
exact
saying
same
the exact
thing.
same thing at the
Yeah.
same time. I'm like, oh, this is yeah. I'm not gonna watch this. This is all.
Well, that's one thing I will say, and I hope, not to say I don't necessarily have any political affiliation one way or the other, which I think lines up very nicely with who our current MPP is. I like that we're independent. I like that she's got a loud voice. I don't necessarily have to agree with everything, but it's very refreshing. It's something I've never experienced before in 21 years of voting.
You're talking about Haldimand, right?
Haldimand Norfolk.
Haldimand Norfolk,
yeah, like our
Right, because
MPP.
certain things cross over.
Yes.
Yeah, once we get on the federal level.
or provincial even.
Yeah.
So I like that. I think it challenges the status quo, right? It's like saying, well, no. The term that was I think coined during that election was like we can put any monkey in there and they'll bleed blue, and well, maybe not, right?
Are you sure?
yeah. Yes, you could make the argument that farmers are generally conservative. and,
Yes.
there's a lot of rural area here, which is
Yeah.
a huge part of the economy. But
Yeah.
I find it neat. I find it refreshing.
I
It's,
like the balance of both out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't swing one way or the other. I
No.
kind of in the middle there. So it's like there's definitely some conservative things, and then there's more liberal things, and there's definitely like a good clash of.
I mean, really, at the end of the day,
Both sides.
it's the same things. You want housing security. You want food security. You
Yeah.
want, good jobs. You want, all of these things. It doesn't change with what government's in.
Yeah,
You want education. You want healthcare. You want,
but I see the other side. It's also good to, lean into tradition and how things have been done, especially Norfolk and Haldimand, which is very agriculture heavy.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we need to modernize. The population is increasing.
Yes.
What did Amy say? Norfolk's going to increase by 20,000? Something like that? I forget.
Well, that's pretty huge considering what's the population now? Like 80?
I think it's 70, in the 70 range. And it's going to go up to the 90 in the next 20 or 30 years, she said.
That's a pretty massive increase. So over
Over 20 years.
Yeah. So the growth is good. It's steady. I think just doing it sustainably is.
What does it say?
71,000.
73.
Yeah, and I think
2003.
Haldimand's like 60 or something.
Is it?
They were split pretty evenly. As far as like the demographics and geography and stuff. It's just we got clay soil and you got all that. You can see it. I love the drive out here because it's like the trees change.
Well, we were just talking about that.
That's a bit
21,
old.
yeah.
It's probably a little more now.
42,000.
I've heard it's
You
like
guys got to
closer
do
to
your
60.
census.
Yeah,
Census.
I may have failed to fill that out. I don't know.
the other thing is, it's like as the population increase across Haldimand, Norfolk, is like where are the jobs coming from? Because it is predominantly, I would say, agriculture and industrial.
Yeah,
So I'm just
or
wondering.
sleeper communities.
That's true.
A lot of the communities are sleeper communities.
Well, it's
where-
like what's that random town that they were Townsend?
Oh, that's an interesting story.
That have you driven through Townsend?
Oh yeah,
It's like-
I know Townsend.
It's the town that never existed. It's like it's the ghost town. It's
It has a very, I don't know the word I'm looking for, like uneasy feel.
eerie.
Eerie.
It's
That's
kind
the
of
word.
eerie. Yeah, it's like
It's very
there's
unfinished.
big roads, and it's like a couple stop signs, and then you're out of it. And it's a neat story, actually. I think there was a documentary recently.
Well, because
on
their
it.
intention was to make it like the hub.
Yes.
Like the biggest,
And it would
like a city, essentially.
bypass like Highway 6 is a problem. It's
Yeah.
it's a corridor, but it was never designed.
It's one lane.
Yeah, it is undivided. It's very
kilometers.
dangerous when the
Super
conditions
dangerous.
are not good. I've personally known a couple people who have passed away on that road. It was a weird like stalemate of a thing. So you had industry saying, you need to build more houses so we can attract more workers and then we can build more plants. And then you had the county saying, okay, government, we need funding. So then the government, so each one of them would do like one little step. It's like, okay, so we did this, now you do that. And then, okay, we did this, now you do that. And then there was like this stalemate where they all just stalemated and said, no, we're not doing, because there was originally supposed to be connected to, you know, the 400 series or the Queen Elizabeth highways or, you know, all those bigger arteries. And I think that's where the stalemate stopped, was that the government had bought up the tracts of land or quite a bit of it. And they were like, okay, well, like you start building the industry. And they're like, well, you start building the road. And, you know, they kind of became this like stalemate. And then that's what happened. So then what's happening now is Jarvis actually is growing to a point where they're starting to tie in a lot of the infrastructure from Townsend. So like last year I saw this like huge pipe getting dragged down the road. And because the wastewater treatment in Jarvis was at capacity,
so was Dover, but they just got a huge fund for it.
So what was interesting was like then this joke started of like, well, you can, you know, take a poo in Jarvis and then race to Townsend and beat it there, like kind of thing. But it's very neat to see this. So they've have a 20-year plan now. Okay. And Haldimand, being that we have the infrastructure, is now part of this big Tri-Cities water project that's actually going to get water all across Haldimand, Norfolk, and Six Nations.
Okay.
That now becomes pretty big business for Haldimand County, which is good, right? And there's a lot of like gears in motion. So it'll be interesting to see how those things kind of fan out in the next few years, I would say.
Well, the one cousin has been there for a while, but I just had another cousin. I have family moving from Hamilton to Jarvis and Haldimand and
cool.
It's like weird to see because I'm the only one from my family in Hamilton that's out here.
Yeah, I grew up in Hamilton too. So
okay,
like I have there's a Hamilton, you know, there's Hamilton bones.
You're Hama boy?
Yeah. Born in Burlington.
Okay.
Moved to Hamilton when I was about 8 years old.
Cool.
Lived there till we bought our second house. So
I love Hamilton so much. I had no intentions of leaving.
It's changed a lot. It's, you know,
since I've moved.
It's like, it's weird, I find, because I'll drive back into areas. I don't really go into the city a ton. I'll drive back into areas and it's like, it's the same, but it's different. Like the buildings are the same, but the fronts have changed.
The culture has changed and the food and the arts it has a huge food and art scene now.
Yes.
Which it didn't when I left.
Yeah.
So now like King and Main are all, you know, all these restaurants and coffee houses, and you have Lock Street and you have...
but I mean, you had that a little bit back in the day. So like our first apartment...
bit.
Yeah, when I was like, I guess it would have been like 21, living just off of Lock Street, like Mountain Ave area.
Oh, lucky you.
And back when rent was cheap, like you could get a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartment for like, you know, $800, right?
Oh my God.
And we lived, on Mountain Ave, and there was like Lock Street Bagel Company. Yep. And, you know, but that doesn't exist anymore. So there was those
There was
places.
a scene. It was just limited.
It never gentrified the way that I think, because then after that, that's when, like, you know, the landlords would literally let their places run into disrepair so that the tenants would leave, and then they would reno it, and then they would just
up it,
jack the rent, right?
Yeah.
That happened a lot. But yeah, Hamilton's very dynamic. It's like there's a lot of different areas within that city and a lot of different.
It's industrial
vibes.
Base. You had Stelco and DeFasco, but then it's cool. You have the escarpment, so the landscape is interesting. You have Coots Paradise. You have the water right there. You know, you're an hour from Toronto, hour from Niagara. It's kind of central. Yeah,
and there's a lot of neat places. Like some of those more industrial spots is like the places that I gravitate towards.
Yeah.
Like
now it's like, you know, a lot of film and TV is being filmed there.
Yeah.
Who is it? Del Toro, who made like Shape of Water, Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth, that guy.
That's cool.
His favorite city in Canada is Hamilton.
Whoa. Oh, yeah.
And he's been coming since the 80s, and he filmed Shape of Water, which won Best Picture, mostly in Hamilton.
Yeah.
And he wants to build a studio there. And I know like what's that? Handmaid's Tale films a lot there, and you know, Murdoch Mystery, and
well, there's a lot of like I can't count the number of times like we would leave a Ticats game and they'd be filming on Ottawa Street or like Barton Street, and they'll just you can always tell, like as a Hamiltonian, you're like, I know that place. There's like that shop that you used to go to, or that little, you know, bodega that kind of like had the they had, like with the Kit Kat sign outside that had the Italian ladies like cooking food out in the back.
Yeah. Very
it just-
Italian-based city too.
Oh yeah. A lot of like back in the day, there was a ton of mob money, right?
Yeah.
There was always
Still
that
is.
kind of joke about how many people ended up with concrete shoes in the harbor.
Sorry, we're just reminiscing about Hamilton. Sorry,
Oh, yeah,
sorry,
go
Drew.
for it,
Sorry,
go for it.
sorry, everybody.
It makes me want to, every time you talk about Hamilton, it makes me want to.
We got to do a tour. There's a ton of breweries there now.
Yeah, my personal
on a
favorite.
tour.
I love them all. They're all friends of mine. Just from like the one that I vibe with is Clifford.
Oh, okay.
It's a big warehouse. It's in a crappy area, but it's just got all the right stuff. It doesn't like they don't have a full food program. A bunch of pinball machines, big tanks, big Fuller's ESB sign on the wall. Brad Clifford is just like a gentle giant, just the nicest person you're ever gonna meet.
Yeah.
I vibe with that place. I'm like, oh man, if I could build an existing brewery, I'd probably build Clifford.
Yeah.
It's for me.
I haven't been to Clifford.
No?
I've been to a lot of them.
It's a vibe.
but,
It's a good time.
Yeah.
It's a cool time. I enjoy it.
Well, we should do like a beer and food thing or something. I don't know.
Please,
Market research.
Let's do it. Market research.
Market research.
Not to like,
Okay,
I'm not. I love all the other ones. Grain and Grit,
It's right
Fairweather.
Yeah,
you
Grain and
guys,
Grit. Yeah,
Merritt's-
Fairweather's really good.
Aaron Spinney and Tej down at Merritt, like they make fantastic beer. It's just like if I had to pick one, that's the one that like I vibe with.
All right,
That's
cool.
Just
Sounds like we'll need a DD.
definitely.
Yeah.
I vote on it.
Well, Shannon's not here. I guess that's
it's her fault. Yeah,
She's gotta drive now.
Goes.
Oh,
Damn,
cool.
yeah.
Wait,
No.
what's the time, Drew? Just curious.
We got 20 minutes.
Okay, cool.
What other fun stuff we got?
Can you guys carry on the convo? I gotta pee really bad.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about Ireland.
Okay,
Have you ever been to Ireland?
I have not.
Because you've been to England. So,
Yes.
like, when you go traveling, do you ever, like, take kind of, like, inspiration into your beers?
Big time. Yeah,
Yeah?
big time. We really enjoyed going to the east coast of Canada last year. Try to just be open to see what everybody else is doing. It's just a fun time, and there's always so many different things going on in community. Like East Coast for me, just really hits something. Like they're just doing such a good job out there. And,
Yeah, I haven't been out that way.
but yeah, I've never been to Ireland. I haven't been around most of Europe.
Okay.
That was actually one of my first trips to Europe. Definitely want to return. But if I go back to England, my goal and focus will be actually just to stay in the south with my aunt and uncle and like vibe around Chichester, because there's like 20 pubs and I really don't think I need to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
Kind of see London's fine and everything else. But yeah, it's neat. You can pull a lot of ideas for ingredients and different ways of production.
Okay.
I find like lately I've been pulling a lot of inspiration from like Norwegian and Lithuanian beer, which is pretty historical and is pretty neat because it pulls from an area that was very locked like out. Like it was kind of, there's a neat family of yeasts that we use quite a bit called Kvike yeasts. And they are just like their own animal, but they developed by being segregated. So they're like long lost cousins of brewer's yeast that got developed in Europe. And they kind of somewhere, hundreds of years ago, just ended up in these locked in communities, so much so that each yeast is actually like generally named after the family or the area. So yeah, if you look up, there's like a website called like Milk the Funk, or you can type in like Kvike the World or Kvike, Kveik.
K-V-I-V-K?
Kveik.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like the world?
Yeast. Yeah, or you can just put in Kvike yeast and Kvike the World. Any of those things, you're going to get all these interesting things like Wikipedia here. That's probably the best one. They were these farmers would brew all their own beer and say we're neighbors, and if your yeast had you'd be like, oh hey Jeff, so then it kind of naturally selected its way where it can ferment in super hot temperatures and create all these cool flavors. So that's been a very big thing that I've enjoyed using lately, is these Kvike strains. Like it says there, they can ferment between 77 and 109 degrees Fahrenheit. Whoa. Most every ale yeast kind of caps out around 80s, Not saying you couldn't ferment it hotter, but you're not going to like what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat that it's been able to, kind of develop on its own, almost like breeding or natural selection.
Well, they're
but just-
living things, right?
Yeah.
What exactly is yeast? Is it a bacteria?
No, it's
Or
just
like
a single-celled organism. So
Okay,
yeast
it's its
is-
own category.
Yes,
Okay.
and it's own. It's the most complicated single-celled organism that we know of, and it hasn't really been researched much until the last 10, 15 years.
Because we use it in bread, baking,
Everything actually,
everything.
beer is a very very small part of it. They use it in fuel production for ethanol.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so when you're making ethanol from corn, that's what they're doing. They're getting the sugar from the corn, they're fermenting it, they're making alcohol or ethanol. Yeast is used in a ton of pharmaceutical applications because of the pathways that it has for compounds and stuff that can only be created that way. So a lot of people forget that beer is a living product.
Living thing.
So it can actually change a little bit over time. Some beers are better when they condition for longer, or maybe like a coffee stout, for example. Ours, I personally like it when it's about a month and a half to 2 months old.
Oh, so I should let this sit.
I'll just get more.
Okay.
Drink some fresh and then get some more.
All right.
And just put it, kind of in a cool place or even your fridge is fine. And just let it sit, and things can kind of, it's like red wine. Dark beers are very similar to red wine. They tend to,
The bottle shock, they call it.
yeah, they tend to smooth out over time, and the flavors meld a little better. Definitely don't want to do that with IPAs.
Fresh.
Because the flavor drops off.
Okay.
And you want those
Stouts, it gets more.
Yes, yeah,
So
it can get more well-rounded.
Yeah. Speaking of the stouts, there was a Jarvis native that was telling me to ask you about Irish car bombs.
Okay.
Have you ever done? Shout out to Bella. She watches all the podcasts. She said,
Hey, shout out.
Yeah, and her mom was saying we should do an Irish car bomb. Probably too late now on the podcast. Should have done it sooner. But have you ever?
I've
done
not.
that with a coffee stout?
No, I haven't.
No?
That sounds delicious.
Is it what's the liquor you put in it?
Whiskey. I think they were saying.
You want to do one?
But they're saying that.
okay.
Yeah, we can do a small one.
Let's do it.
Before we go.
Whatever.
Okay, hold on.
It's no problem. It's,
They were
I'm a
sa-
professional at
Yeah.
this. It's all right.
They were saying in Ireland though, they don't call it an Irish car bomb because of the negative connotation.
Yeah, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like how, unfortunately, the term I love mules, but we no longer call them Moscow mules.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just
It's
mules,
interesting
just
how
mules.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do just a little sippy poo of.
How one person can change. That's so cool. Refrigerated table. Damn. Man, I've not lived yet.
I gotta look up. I gotta make sure. I'm pretty sure they said it's
so-
Irish whiskey.
From what I remember at bars, they would pour the stout and then they put the vodka in a shot glass and just drop it
Yeah,
in, right?
but we'll just do
But-
a sippy poo.
All right.
It said stout plus Irish whiskey.
Irish
podcast
whiskey.
with
Oh,
Jeff.
yeah,
That was
nice.
in my notes.
Cool.
That was when I was doing the light up.
Okay.
Huge shout out to that as well. That is such a huge.
Yeah, it's grown
thing.
like crazy. So, for
Really
those
brings
that don't
us-
know the town of Jarvis, where we're located,
I actually have Irish whiskey.
Oh heck yeah!
This is the third year they've done it. They do this competition called the Jarvis Light Up, and the idea being is that it get as much of the town as possible to put lights out. But then there's a bunch of people who compete, right? And actually, my neighbor, 4 or 5 doors down, actually won the one division this year. But it is something crazy, man.
It really brings a spirit of Christmas back. Because I went last year just driving around. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And then this year I went to the, what do you call the day?
That is
Event
just
day?
they do, it's like the light up day. So
Yeah.
they do this, they have bands. and
That
then
was a lot of energy.
They get all this stuff going on, and I was out slanging some chili on the
Yeah.
deck. And
I have one
trying to-
complaint. Their speaker bass is way too loud. Other than that, it was great.
Perfect.
Yes.
Speaker.
Their speaker setup they had, That bass was cranked to the max to the point where the speaker was blowing, and I could feel my organs moving in my body.
So you were like at a drum and bass concert.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
They
And
were
I
like
couldn't hear the music because the bass was too loud. It's my only complaint.
Competing with the fireworks.
I know you're old when you're like, this bass hurts. This bass hurts my kidneys.
Yeah, come
No,
on,
it
Drew.
was a lot. Like I felt like I was at Veld again,
You
like
turned-
EDM festival.
How old you
but-
just turned? Like 31 this
30.
year?
Shut up.
30.
I'm trying
Yeah.
This
Well,
bass is too
Am I just an
loud.
old man?
I think so.
I think it comes when you like knocking on the door of 40. That's me now, where it's like, man, going to bed at 8:30 sounds awesome.
Yeah, I
You know,
like.
it's like, I
10,
just wanna,
9,
like-
9, 10 is
I'm a late night. That's surprising to me because creatives,
Yeah.
generally stay up later. So
I mean, I don't know. I've done so many things. Cheers, guys.
cheers.
Salute.
Here's the good beer.
And good whiskey.
Good beer, good whiskey, good company.
Oh, that's tasty.
Oh, okay.
That's
You know
tasty.
what?
It
I don't-
really cuts the harshness of the whiskey down a bit, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the coffee notes.
But you
real
still
nice.
taste the
A little
whiskey.
sweet. Yeah.
I don't mind that.
No, not at all.
Okay.
That is tasty, and it's kind of neat because the coffee was like a rum roasted coffee, so now you've got like the rum roast
rum and
character,
some
kind of with the
whiskey and
whiskey.
some-
That's neat. Oh man,
The other one I want to try is a layered one. Tyler was
like
you
a
do
black and tan.
That's it.
It's
black
hard.
and
It's
tan.
hard to do.
Hard to pour.
Yeah, it's hard to pour. You need very specific gravities on the beer. So I've tried to do it, and it's just our heavy beer's not heavy enough, and our light beer's not light enough.
So you do, I would assume, like
they'll
a
just
stout
blend.
first, and then a blonde on top, or
Yeah,
ale?
I think you can. Yeah, you definitely. Well, it depends too, right? Because, like an example being like a dry stout, like a Guinness, for example, can be lighter.
it is. Yes.
So it'll end up on top, you
because
know
this
what I
has
mean?
more of like
This is
like
heavier.
a syrupy texture to my mouth.
It's the
Is-
lactose.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's got a bit of lactose for that residual sweetness. So it could go essentially both ways. But yeah, black and tans are cool. Yeah, those are definitely good and drinkable for sure. That's nice though. I like that.
Yeah.
I love how you just ended up with the Concession Road one.
Oh yeah, yeah. Neat, eh?
So,
Gravitate.
well, my 30th birthday, I don't know if you were there that day, but we just did all the breweries around the area. And so at the end of the day, my parents surprised me with a shot glass from each brewery.
Oh, like
that
one of our
was-
samplers.
Yeah,
Nice.
so that's a sampler, and then this one,
Nice.
Wishbone.
that one's Wishbone.
I got Flux. I don't
So
know
you
if
got
I made it to
Flux.
Flux that day. I think I had to call it.
I don't think I did mentally. I was physically there.
You were
Yeah.
having a great
But
time. It
Flux was the last stop,
Oh,
and I got a
okay.
flight at each one.
Oh, perfect.
So
Yeah, you're having a good time.
I was having a great time.
That's the way to go.
Yeah.
A little taste of everything, right?
Yeah, it was great,
perfect.
and they surprised me. Well, Ash did plan it all, and they just showed up with a school bus, and I was like getting back from the gym with Trevor, and I was like, "What? Ah, man, the
in.
school bus is blocking my driveway.
Yeah, just
like,
like-
why would they do this?" And I'm like, "I have to talk to this driver now."
See,
It's my
the-
birthday.
yeah.
I can't believe this is
birthday.
happening on
There's
my
the
birthday.
30-year-old in you, right?
Yeah.
It was
You're like,
it was for me.
I gotta mow my lawn, and you're in the way.
Actually, I'm here for you.
I'm fighting that as much as I can. I don't ever want to. I had this person down the corner, and she was just a nightmare. Hated kids. If you're bawling on that lawn, she'd pop it and call the police. To the point where the police were like, "If you call us one more time, we're gonna fine you."
Yeah,
And so,
we had a neighbor like that at the brewery.
really?
Yeah, they'd call the cops on us if we had like
Too many people?
Jack Johnson style musician played in the corner on a Sunday at 3 p.m. And the cops like, "Can you turn it down?" And I'm like, "No."
You're not
He's
breaking
like,
any
"Okay."
bylaws.
He's like, "I just have to ask." I'm like,
yeah. Like,
"Yeah," and here's your answer. No, like,
Because there's actual decibel bylaw for decibels, I think.
yeah. No, I was nowhere near it. And
That's
we're
what I
also
mean.
on the way we're zoned. We're on a street that has a full blown park with baseball, disc golf, you name it, tennis, and then there's a community center. And then
Oh yeah,
the
you guys
towing and
started
How does he
a disc
want?
golf thing, right?
that was actually Shannon, mostly my wife. She gets most of the credit for that.
That's
So,
cool.
Although I'm an avid disc golfer.
Contributing to culture.
Yeah, trying to at least. Yeah, so she's part of the Jarvis Lions. Shout out to the Jarvis Lions. They're like probably one of the biggest clubs in Southern Ontario.
Yeah.
And what they do for the community is just incredible. Like, I mean, she goes and does, I believe she was actually just out this way recently doing vision testing in some
Oh,
of the
that's
schools.
great.
Yeah. So they'll take the students because here's the thing: when a student starts performing not great in school, they don't always know why. And sometimes it's because they can't see shit. You know, like, oh, you're not reading at a third grade level. Well, yeah, because I can't see the words,
suck.
right?
Yeah.
Or it could be, you know, like what I have is like, I'm pretty sure I have a form of dyslexia, but just attention deficit, you know? It's just hard time. If you're not interested in it, it's excruciating to pay attention.
Oh, to like,
To focus.
I'll check out. I mean, I think a lot of that to do with me was like related to COVID and just navigating a business through COVID,
which is a whole podcast on its own.
Dude, I totally mentally checked out. Can you just repeat all of that?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't mean to. It just happened. It's just like I just kind of go blank.
Sometimes your brain just like, hey,
yeah,
let's think about something else for a minute.
It just overloads, and then it's like, what happened to him? Don't worry, he'll be okay in a minute. You know, just like just zone out. But no, that was a lot, and you know, something that's still. I look forward to the day when it's no longer talked about. But then that means that something else just as impactful has happened.
No, we're just gonna be normal. Now. We're gonna just smoothly transition into.
I call it the before times or the long ago.
Yeah.
Like, oh, in the long ago.
Gangnam Style.
Yeah.
And like things like just
I did
fun
a
internet
lot of
things happening.
Things that I never thought the business would be capable of, or learned a lot, and you know, there's a lot of emotion around it.
The positive thing you can think about for COVID is like that's pretty bad. That's a bad situation to be in to own a business during COVID. So everything after this, hopefully, will in comparison be easier.
The biggest positive I took, I mean, we had, being 7 years old, we had 16 months of non-COVID. Then
you and Tyler both opened a brewery.
So he was neat because he opened on the day that everything kind of opened up,
God.
and it was a neat friendship we formed because you know, he was coming into the brewery. We were talking about him opening and what his plans were, and I think I even opened up my business plan to him. Like I
didn't realize the two of you were friends. I was friends with both of you individually.
Yeah.
And then you guys were together, and you guys were like, well, "You guys get along well."
Oh yeah,
we're friends. I'm like, what?
Yeah, we get along really, really well. Actually, I think we were just texting yesterday, and he was asking me, or this morning actually, because we're getting together on New Year's, and he wants me to smoke up a pork shoulder. So I said I would. So hopefully it turns out all right.
Did you make the smoker yourself? Was that one of those?
I had one that I made myself. I got rid of it recently because my wife told me I couldn't have a new one unless I got rid of the one that I had. And now I have 3. So I got rid of the one that I had built probably about 8 years ago. It worked okay. And then I got a really nice one. And then like driving down the road in Jarvis, and there's like a Weber smoker. This thing's like $800 smoker. Looks brand new. Guy's asking $100 for it.
Oh.
I go over and I'm like, hey man, what's the story on this? Well, you know, I got it. I tried it once. It's too much work. Oh, okay, I'll be right back with your cash, man. So I grabbed that thing, like didn't want it. So it's like a Weber Smoky Mountain, which is shaped like I don't even know how to describe it. It's just a cylindrical cylinder essentially. And then I always wanted an offset smoker, which is like the one where you actually just burn fire. And again, guy, $300, used it for 3 hours. Got rid of it. And I'm like, okay.
I don't have one, but my dad has one. It's either a Traeger or a Pit Boss. I can't remember.
Oh, like a pellet one? Pellet ones are good.
Ones.
Yeah, pellets are good.
Yeah, I've got
They're easy.
Brisket on there and things like that.
Pellets are easy. The one I have one that's similar to that, but it's just it runs on charcoal and wood.
Okay.
But it runs the same as like a Traeger.
Okay.
Like you just fill it with charcoal and wood, and it still controls itself and stuff. It's become a bit of. It started during COVID. I was like, well, if the government's going to lock me in my house, then I'm going to
do something.
Enjoy it. Yeah. So then I, acquired a pizza oven, and
Nice.
so now I actually have to like next year build like a bit of a cabana cooking space. Because it's kind of taken over my patio where it's like
pizza oven.
All right, where are we
smoker.
gonna sit now? Because you got all this shit here.
Yeah.
Can you expand? Are there opportunities for you to expand?
Is this like your home?
Oh no,
backyard?
this is personal stuff.
We're talking about your home.
Yeah.
I understand.
So yes, sorry. Talking about at home. I love the idea of like incorporating that love of food into the brewery.
Brisket and a beer.
Here's the problem I have with it. We were just talking about it today. Is that like when you take something you love and you monetize it, it becomes a different thing.
I
That's
can
true.
I can tell you I can relate because I had a hobby of photography and videography.
Yes.
And now it's a business. And so whenever I go to like functions and family things, they're like, "Where's your camera? I need to bring your camera." I was like,
Yeah.
"You don't understand. I
Yeah,
do
it-
not want that camera in my
It
hand."
changes and then expectations start to grow.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like we've had this discussion where, what does the future of the business hold? And with the way things are going now, most people expect breweries to be restaurants. So the food component has become much larger. And not to say we don't have good food. We do your typical.
You have great food.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do your typical kind of tapasy type stuff.
Yeah.
Dips and charcuterie and pretzels and pizzas and whatnot.
People don't understand how hard it is to run a kitchen.
Oh my god! To be honest, like having come from the first career path I had
Yeah.
was down the commercial kitchen rabbit hole.
I come from a kitchen background.
Is like it scares the crap out of me because it is something that you can get in so deep so fast, but you really have to go that deep. Like you need to wow people, and you got to do it right out of the gate. There's so many great chefs that do such a great job.
Yeah.
Whereas with the brewery, it's like I just want things to be good and complement the beer.
Yeah, you don't want the
know.
food to be a focus. You just want it. You need food when you're drinking
Yeah,
and stuff, but
yeah.
it's really about the beer.
Yes.
And that's what I like about you and Tyler so much is I can tell it all stems from a love for beer, and then everything after that is on top of that.
Complementary.
Whereas I feel like other places are, they're looking to make money or other
doing
things.
both. Yeah.
They're doing both. Whereas like your base level is
You're a
you
brewer.
love
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
love beer and
Well,
you're passionate about
And
it.
it comes down to why did you start a brewery, right?
Yeah.
Like, so for me, I started a brewery to create a job for myself as a brewer. There was no way I was going to enter the industry as a brewer in the traditional method.
To be hired, yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah,
I have
as a-
no
yeah.
experience. Like, hey, I brew chemicals. Do you want to hire me and pay me a good salary? People are like, you crazy.
Yeah.
You ever brewed beer before? Well, yeah, like 5 gallons of it. And they're like, and you think that I'm going to take a chance on you for what? Go to college,
My
come back
coworkers
when you
might
got a
do.
degree, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, this is the only way in.
Yeah.
We're building the brewery, boys.
And that's the thing. You don't need school to be a brewmaster, correct?
No, it's not considered a legitimate trade, even though it should be. But there's pros and cons to that, right? It's like, do I think that a little more guidance and education within our industry is important? Heck yes. I wish it was there. I think it would be great to be able to see those repositories of information and learn. So really that's why brewers are so collaborative, because another
Hey,
brewer locally could be
yeah.
doing something
Hey,
and he'll
have
be
you
like,
tried
hey,
this yeast,
I
or-
know you do really great things with this. Do you think you could help me out? And it's like, sure. It's,
Very collaborative.
You might be good at a particular style of beer, and Tyler might be good at another,
100%.
and then you share information.
Sometimes we'll work
so-
together to brew together, and
There you go.
sometimes like I might just call up another brewer I know and just be like, hey, I'm doing this thing. This is usually how I'll approach it, because there's always people, like, when you do something, you want to vet the person coming to you. Like, they can just come and be like, hey, can you do everything for me?
Mm-hmm.
Or, generally when I talk to friends, it's like, I'm considering doing this. This is the procedure I've kind of thought up in my head for doing this. What do you think? And then they'll say, well, I maybe I'd do this a little differently, or I would approach that with a different mindset, or those kind of things, right? Rather than me saying, hey, I noticed you do this thing and I want to do that thing too. So can you tell me how to do it?
Yeah.
It's like, well, what are you offering? to
Yeah,
the
let's
table
learn
here?
together.
Yeah,
Like, what can
exactly.
we- yeah.
So I think that's kind of in the collaborative spirit.
bit of give and take.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and just in how you approach it too is like, I mean, I love teaching, and that's great. But I mean, at a certain point, it's like, well, if I'm just going to give you the secret sauce, then you didn't earn it.
Yeah. For sure. No, it makes sense.
Right? Like, I'm not saying every beer we've made. What was that? I was listening to a podcast. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I was listening to one recently, and they said you gotta do those like 50 things to have that one that like you hit it out of the park. But you can't get it without doing those 49 other things. You can't
Yeah.
just like skip those and go, well, everything's going to be a grand slam, right? So like we've won 3 awards, but we've brewed hundreds of beers.
Yeah. Just business in general. It's just a process of failing and keep going.
Yeah. And when you do fail, just be honest about it.
Yeah.
Stuff happens. This is life, but have fun, continue doing it. Have some Irish car bombs with your beer along the way, right?
Amen.
Man, sorry to cut this short. I feel like we could. There are certain guests I feel like we need part 2s for.
Yeah, this was.
I'm down. But I mean, doesn't have
There's
to be.
so much. There's so much I haven't asked you about. I would love to touch on, but I gotta go.
Quick fire question. Last question.
I'm going to. Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
No.
Oh, for me. Sorry.
Yeah, whatever.
I just don't know if I want to open a can of worms here.
What's
or
your
not.
favorite beer that you brew?
That I brew.
What's your
That's
go-to?
one of them for sure.
The stout?
Yeah, the coffee
Nice.
stout. It's just, and it gives you a kick. Like, I need a caffeine kick
This
right now.
is good. I
A pint
now
of
need to
that.
try it without the
3 pints,
whiskey.
you'll get squirrely.
What do we talk?
It's-
What's the caffeine level in a can?
About the equivalent of
a coffee?
Really?
Actually,
Whoa.
a little bit more because we do it with cold steep the beans.
Okay.
And when you cold steep, you
thing
actually
we
can extract
Good thing
more.
we split
Yeah,
this.
we split
so-
it.
That's good. Quick fire one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Classic.
I get like cravings for stouts sometimes. Like I'm just like, oh, I need a Guinness. Like I
Yeah.
need to go get one. I don't know what it is. But for people who haven't tried stouts, I always ask them, hey, do you like coffee?
Yeah.
Because I find it's like that. There's a crossover between a stout, maybe like a light stout like Guinness, and like drinking a cold coffee. I find them
For sure.
similar flavor.
Yeah.
And because I'll forget as soon as we stop, we're going to do the selfie right during the pod.
And I'll drop like a little promo. So we're Concession Road Brewing Company, 17 Talbot Street East, Jarvis. Been there 7 years. Hope to be there for many, many, many more.
What's the best way? Obviously, come there to buy beer. But
Yeah.
are you in beer stores, LCBOs? anything
No
like that?
LCBO, no beer store
Okay.
currently, but a handful of restaurants around kind of the area.
Do you sell online?
The shipping companies all went out of business.
Okay. Go
So
to Concession and
beer's
Jarvis.
heavy, right?
Yeah.
Definitely if you're looking to order, decent order, reach out to us. I'm usually traveling around in the van around the counties, so it's not super hard to drop off. Obviously not a can or 2 cans. But,
Yeah. What about like a commercial location that wants to buy a keg?
Oh yeah, for sure. Reach out. My wife's our sales manager, and then we get you onto our licensee. We have a licensee list, so we send it out every week, and just has what formats are available. Being small, we rotate a lot, so that's kind of the idea of where we want to be. Not in a place that just wants the same static line all the time, but somebody who wants to rotate through and have a little fun. And
Cool.
yeah,
Love it.
Nice.
yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you guys.
Thanks for
you.
coming in,
That
Jeff.
was a good
Yeah,
one.
appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Yeah. Cheers.
Take care.